inspire.
Welcome back to Starting Now. I'm your host, Jeff Sarris. This is the show where I talk to entrepreneurs to reveal the unexpected paths to entrepreneurship. Today, my guest is Tyler Hitt. Tyler he is an entrepreneur through and through. He has done so much over the years, but what he is most recognized for right now is HGA, which is a sports card grading company. And if you're not familiar, sports cards have exploded in popularity in the last year. They've proven to be excellent investments, just an alternative investment where something like a Michael Jordan rookie might be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars if it's in pristine condition. And the pristine condition is the reason that's what his business does. His business hybrid grading approach. They take cards that people send to them and pay them to grade, and they give it a rating and seal it up. So a rating out of 10 being perfect, 1 being poor. But those gradings then dictate how valuable a card is. Tyler has so much experience in building businesses. It's mind-boggling how much he's done. So we dive into his whole story, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. So without further ado, my conversation with Tyler Hitt. For anyone who isn't familiar maybe with the sports card industry and what's happening right now, could you just describe a little bit about what like grading is, why it matters, and then talk about what you do at HGA?
Yeah. Grading is we just determine the condition of the card's quality. So it comes through our system. Will scan the card. It'll actually analyze and grade the card, give it a grade 1 to 10 on the scale, and just determine the condition of corners, surface, edges, and centering.
Okay, yeah.
So it's sorry, just had a message slide across my desk.
Oh, yeah, but
yeah, all it does is it increases the value of the card. So if you have a card that grades perfect as a 10, it's going to triple to quadruple the price of the card or the value of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the industry as a whole has just blown up lately. So like your company is relatively new. It's only a few months old. And what was the impetus for jumping in such a competitive market?
So when I've been a card collector my whole life, but I was actually, breaking cards. We started breaking cards, collecting more cards the past about almost year and a half, 2 years ago. And when we'd send cards into like PSA and different places, we would see a lot of inconsistencies in the grading, just boring labels. It's just an older market. It's been around for 30 years. PSA has, Beckett has. Been very little change, very little newcomers come and actually press them to do anything better. So I was like, we could definitely do that. And so I put my team of developers on it and got me a strong team behind me, and we really started making headway.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a big investment. And I know you're an entrepreneur before this venture. You were an entrepreneur, and you are hard to pin down. I was trying to figure out some of the other businesses you were doing. What I tracked down was like Rip Hitt, like your last name being Hitt, because that was in round cards. But then Switch It Title Exchange, possibly Hometown Apparel, and then Hitt Exotics.
Yep.
Yeah, so you've done quite a different, like you have a broad spectrum of things that you've worked on and created. So like I wanted to dive into your story and like learn how you got here, learn about the entrepreneurship side of you, and how you got to HGA. So when were you first feeling the entrepreneurship bug? Is this something that's always been with you? Is it something more in adulthood?
No, it's always been with me. I've always been just entrepreneurial minded. My favorite games growing up were always like the tycoon games. You want to build up big town businesses, roller coaster, theme parks, just everything. And it just, carried over to adulthood. I opened my first business when I was 20 years old. It was in the travel industry. We sold vacation packages and different things. Then we went into the title company. So we work in that Switch a Title Exchange. We've had it for 7-8 years now, and we deal with timeshare titles. And then from there, we bought Preplayed Media. I've opened Hometown Apparel. We have Coffee Prohibition. There's a couple that you weren't able to find, but they're Hitt Exotics. That was one of my more recent ones. It was a exotic car rental company. So just anything that I'm passionate about that I think, can be profitable I like to delve into and see how profitable it could be and how much fun it could be, and if there's a need in the industry for it.
Yeah, for sure. So coffee prohibition, what is that?
It's our coffee shop. It goes with our video game store, and in the evenings we do like escape games out of it.
That is very cool. Yeah, you
Yeah,
you have your hands in a lot of different things. That's awesome.
yeah.
So, how did you first get into the travel company? Was that something that you had been a part of before? Did you notice that need?
Well, I work for a timeshare industry. I was in the timeshare industry, and I went from that into what they call vacation club. So it's a spinoff. It's used the unused inventory of timeshare. And from there, we started working with some of the memberships, and they wanted to offer their members special packages instead of just letting them log on. They wanted us to directly contact them. So we set up our own call room and our own phone room to sit there and call their members and offer certain discounted vacations. And that was my first entrepreneurial thing that I had done.
Nice. And how long was that before then you started to diversify and branch out?
That was probably when I was 20, so that was 13 years ago, and it took a little while after that to get back into a more stable side of the industry. Timeshare is very up and down, and so we were able to get into the title work, transferring titles, getting people out to timeshare, and just doing a lot of the title work.
Yeah. So then, like, it sounds like these early businesses then were funding the future ones, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, yep, 100%. Yeah, so all the money that comes from other businesses goes back into more future endeavors.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, what drives you to keep growing? Because you do have so many things going on, and I imagine we'll dive into everything, but I imagine quite a big staff to be managing across all these different platforms and things.
I'm very competitive, and as I've gotten older, since I'm not as good at sports anymore, that I'm getting older and I'm still short, still can't jump, still not fast. I can be competitive in the business world.
For sure. And like, it's funny. That's what I was thinking about. Like, I feel like that's why I'm an entrepreneur, is like
Right.
playing sports growing up. It's all these things that I miss. And it's mostly competitive with me. Like, I'm trying to
Right.
get better and do better. I'm not really trying
Right.
to like neither of us are not trying to crush anyone. You're not trying to like destroy PSA. You're trying to compete and show that you can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. It's just, always proving your worth and showing that you can do something. It's, when one of the most motivating things to me is when somebody tells me I can't. So when somebody's like, "Oh, you can never make a grading company, you can't catch PSA, you can't, make a legitimate company," I'm like, "Watch me." So,
Yeah.
so that's one of my favorite things to hear is when somebody doubts me. I'm like, "All right, cool." It gives me the fire I need. It's like, when you played sports, I'm like, "Oh, you can't beat that team. You can't beat that guy. He's better than you. He's bigger than you. He's faster than you." I'm like, "All right, we'll see." So I'm just very competitive when it comes to everything.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, it's definitely the adult competition in this space.
Yep.
So what type of investment was it to start something like HGA? Because you've developed the technology to have the artificial intelligence grading. You've developed your own slabs for you've done so much in a
Yep.
very short period of time. I imagine there's quite an upfront cost to get
Yeah.
in the game.
As we're still going, we're still developing. I mean,
Mhm.
we've been developing for over a year now. Um, we're in the millions. That's well over past $4 or $5 million that I have invested of my own money into it. We have no more money that's come in from anybody. Nobody's invested. I have no investors. I've done it all myself. I actually sold off Hitt Exotics. I had all my cars paid for. Owned 13. I think we had 13 exotic cars, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, different cars. So I sold off my collection to fund all this.
Wow.
But yeah, it's been very expensive and extensive, and we're still continuing to invest more into it every day.
Definitely. So, what was the opportunity that you saw then that to sell off essentially the entire business of Hit Exotics,
Mhm.
all the cars, to go really just head first right into the sports card industry?
The need. It was to me, it was the need. When I really started going into it, they would say 10 days, and then this did be like 20 days. And then it was like the next time I submitted, it was like 40 days for a 10-day. I'm like, well, this is getting worse. And, then the prices of the boxes started going up. And I'm like, oh, wait, the demand's getting higher. It's continuing to get higher. And well, who else can we send to besides PSA and BGS? So then I went to HGC, gave them a try. And, they were backed up. It was supposed to have been 10 to 20 days. And I got them back 150 days later. Now, by that time, I'd already, delved into this. And I'm like, all right, it's a huge issue in the market. There's not enough, grading companies. Honestly, there needs to be more grading companies to keep up with the demand right now. The demand is at an all-time high, but it's been increasing every year. But you can look back at PSA and BGS every year for the past, I think, 11 years now. They've increased in their profits and their.
Ooh, sorry, you broke up right there.
Sorry, had a phone call.
Oh no, it's all good.
But yeah, so I mean, the numbers have continued to climb up until COVID, and then they just spiked. I mean, it just went. I mean, just in another stratosphere. I mean, nobody expected that it would blow up like that.
Yeah, for sure. So when COVID hit, were you already developing HGA?
We had already started right around the time that it started in March. We had already started putting plans and stuff together. By April, we were already had a team of 8, developing all the software, all the ordering systems, all the workflow automation tools. Yeah, we were already going into it. Took a lot longer. I was like, hey, let's be open by July or August. We didn't launch till January. I mean, there's so much more that goes into it. I mean, just even the developing the cases. I didn't want to go overseas. That's where a lot of the companies make their cases. It's way cheaper, but I wanted to keep it here in the United States. And that itself was a task. And then all the different sizes to hold each size thickness of card up to 360 point. It's a work, and then it's expensive. We had our initial investment in cases was almost $500,000.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah, that's no joke.
They're not cheap. I mean, that's why people are like, oh, they're just throwing in a cheap. I'll start my own grading company. I'm like, if you want to start it right, it ain't cheap. Go ahead.
Yeah. And yeah, you've invested in every aspect, like you said, like the design of the labels, everything. Like it, as soon as I saw that, because I come from like what we do is brand development and whatnot, like sort of a design world. So I saw that and I was like, I love how they look. And then learning about the AI and the quick turnaround and things, it really immediately, it was appealing to me. So
awesome.
What were some of the things, just for anyone listening, like I know how you were launching it, but what were some of the things you did to ensure you didn't run into the troubles that a PSA or SGC were running into?
That was one of the big things was, we noticed that they were falling behind.
Mm-hmm.
So we put limitations on our submissions each week. So we started off the very first week, we took in 800 cards. We're almost 4 months into business and we're at almost 8,000 cards a week right now.
Wow.
So, I mean, we've grown tenfold. We started with 8 employees when we launched, and now we're at 120 some employees. Whoa. So we're the 3rd largest grading company by number of employees right now. So we've, passed all the other companies pretty quickly that, have been, around a while, or some of the newer ones. Obviously we had a leg up on them a little bit, but my goal is to have 1,000 employees worldwide by the end of this year.
Wow. Yeah, that is impressive. Well, what does it look like to bring people in then? Because it's the hybrid approach to artificial intelligence and human grading. Is there a lot of onboarding for someone, or is it maybe a little easier because you have the software side?
It's a little easier. So it's pretty consistent and standard across the board for the grading. So we need people who know cards for a couple steps of the process. The rest of it is pretty just manual, checking the cards, making sure you can read Kobe, make sure it's on the page, that it's the right order. A lot of it's, just training. A lot of like shipping, all they have to know how to do is, push buttons and get it shipped, packaged correctly, and sent back out. So the majority of it they don't need full experience, but there are some specifics that we are recruiting for across the country. We've moved people from, I think, 9 different states and 2 different countries so far.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So
yeah, and it feels like
out.
Yeah, there's so much to develop in terms of the grading as well and figuring out the cards. Oh, and if it's easier, you can flip the phone vertical. It's no problem.
Oh no, it's fine. Just wasn't. I wasn't 100% ready to set up, and so I'm just holding my phone right now.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, whatever works for me, whatever works for you. But yeah, there's so many aspects of, like you mentioned, like there's like the centering, there's the corners, the edges, and whatnot, the surface. But there's also you have like autographs, like authentication of autographs, authentication of the card, because like reprints of especially like vintage cards is a big problem. How have you approached that? Because like I don't even know where to start with something like that.
Yeah. So we have previous authenticators that have done authentication in the past, and they bring in their own library of autographs and everything, and then they look for same penmanship, pen stroke, and everything like that. As far as like your new try to be reprints of your 86 clear Jordans, we have a lot of people who have a lot of research history into cards. So it's it definitely uses a lot of different techniques. We also have, with our AI, it's able to, scan and measure the cards and everything to make sure it's not, a miscut or anything like that. So we use as much technology, but we have a lot of research and staff and development that know their cards and know what to look for fakes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, because that would be the last thing you would want is to be authenticating cards that aren't actual, like especially a Jordan, like a Jordan
Right.
rookie. That would be the worst. But
Yep.
yeah,
That's why, a lot of the companies are quitting to take those. It's just because their fakes are getting so good. So it's really, it's sad, but, if somebody could slide a, fake Jordan off for, thousands of dollars, they're going to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I just want to check. Did I understand correctly that last year you spent some crazy figure just on cards for your personal collection?
Yeah, you probably did. I love cards, and I was spending, and I still do, anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 a week on cards.
That is wild. Like that's,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I can't even fathom, but I love like that's from your passion for entrepreneurship. You've built
Yep.
this income and everything to afford the ability to do that, which is amazing. Now, were you using those as investments at that point, or just pure?
Yeah, some of them, I'll sit on. I was having them graded. I'd sit on some of them. I'd flip some of them. A little bit of everything. But 20,000. Some people are like, "How can you open that much product?" Right now, a box or a case of Flawless, it's almost 20,000. So I get to open 20 cards for $20,000. So
Yeah.
you're paying $1,000 to open a random card, pretty much. So it's like, it's not as hard as people think. Like, I bet that's a lot of cards when they don't know the industry. It's like, it's not really.
Yeah, and especially just in these last 12 months, like things have ramped up. Like I just like growing up, like you, I was into sports cards and things, but it wasn't until the last maybe 18 months or so that I really started to get interested in it again. And I'm just really collecting some of the vintage stuff that I like personally. Like a lot of mostly football. But sort of on that note, would you say that HGA is more suited for a certain type of card, like vintage versus ultra modern?
No, I wouldn't say we're more suited. We have a lot more data for new cards. It's just, easier to come across and scan a lot of the newer cards. They're just way more produced right now and just easier to get our hands on as we, went through and built our database. So I would say that we have a much larger library of new cards. I'd say 85% of our stuff is ultra modern.
Yeah. Yeah. And with your approach, then your personal approach, I've heard that you're not running your cards through your own system.
Correct.
Which like makes sense. You wouldn't want to have anyone like consider that you may be gaming the system in any way.
Exactly. And that's the only reason. I just don't ever want to be accused of anything like that. So
exactly.
I have all my own cards, and I have an eBay account, and I have all my cards that I don't need. I sell them raw. So
yeah.
I leave a lot of money on the table, but I'm just a man of my word, and I said I wouldn't grade my own cards, and I don't.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. That has to be tough though, because you're developing what feels like the way to do it now, but then not able to use your own service. But yeah.
We hope to change that in the future. Once the new system that we've launched, we can make everything anonymous. And before we ever, offer it to our employees and stuff, we're going to go live and show how our system works, that it's completely anonymous and everything. So where there is no way that it could be cheated. So before we ever allow that, at that point, months down the road, once we get all that done, love to be able to use my own grading service, but it has to be 100% completely anonymous. So there is no cherry picking or anything like that other companies have been accused of and been caught doing. So, before we ever go to that, that is something 100% that has to be done before we ever consider that.
Yeah. So how do you balance your time across all of these businesses? Like when we started, you mentioned you're just meeting after meeting today. Yeah. How do you do it?
Mainly right now, this is my big focus. HGA is. So I usually get them set up and I find somebody who runs it, and they do a very good job. I'll just get random updates daily or, once a week, depending on which business it is. And, I have meetings with them. I'll swing by and check on them or call and talk to whoever runs it for me and, just go on about my way. I like to build companies, build brands, and, put people in the right place. And that's what it's about, because you can't build any large business without trust. And, you have to find people you can trust and, have the same direction in mind that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. After all this time then, with so many hires, do you have any advice for finding people that you can trust?
No, I trust everybody until you give me a reason not to trust you.
Oh, there you go. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess
That's why I tell
being,
everybody, I'm like, go ahead.
yeah, being comfortable firing then, I guess if it's not a
Yeah.
fit is very important.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 100%. I tell everybody that, like, you got a chance here, just don't mess it up.
Hmm.
We can get along great. You can be a long-term employee, have a long career here. Just don't mess up.
Yeah.
So,
So do you see a long runway of your main focus being HGA, or are there any things that are starting to spark your interest already?
I mean, this is very in depth. There's a lot
Yeah.
that goes into it. My focus will be on HGA for at least the upcoming 2 to 3 years, at least 100%.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you
So,
do you have sort of a runway typically like that, like a couple years with the companies, or
yeah, I usually try to gift each company at least 1 to 2 years. This one's obviously much larger. I mean, we see a huge future with HGA and what it could become worldwide. So it's definitely going to take. I've devoted a lot more of my time and attention to it than normal.
yeah? So with such an expensive company to run, so many
Yep.
employees, are you able to be profitable yet? Is there like a point where you're like, oh, so many months down the line we'll hit profitability? Like, how does that look?
Um, we're profitable.
Nice.
But the only thing that we're doing with the profit is putting it right back into the company. So there's nothing coming from the company profit wise, like into my pocket, but we're profitable. So it looks very good. But 100% of our money goes right back into building because we're, expanding fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how much space have you had to expand space already? Because I mean, just thinking
Yeah.
that you'd
So
have 1,000 employees later.
yeah, we have, right now we're at 52,000 square feet. We have a new location with another 8,000 square feet, and we're looking at another location with an additional 47,000 square feet.
Wow.
So within the next couple months, we should be around over 100,000 square feet.
Yeah. That is growth. Like that is just
Yeah.
amazing. Like growing
Yeah.
that quickly. And where are you based out of again?
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, wow. Yeah, everything I do is from like the minimalist business kind of space. It's me and my business
Right.
partner. We work behind the scenes at different brands. But I really wanted to talk to you just seeing that you've done so much, and I find it very fascinating. And I think it's really useful to be able to see like all the different like approaches to business and entrepreneurship and everything. Are you hoping to reach a particular market share versus the other companies?
I mean, we want to be the biggest and the best.
Yeah, I guess as soon as I said it, I'm like, I think I know what the answer is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I've been clear about that. I mean, I don't understand why anybody goes into business to be second or third fiddle in anything. If I'm going into anything, I believe that I'm the best. I'm either offering a superior product or I'm offering a superior service than what my competitors are, and we're doing both.
Yeah.
So I think it's only a matter of time. We've had some issues, labels, being misspelled and different things, and we've had issues like that. Some people are like, oh, they lost my credibility, but it's just silly, to try to write us off when the other company's been in business for 30 years and they still make mistakes. But we have a lot of stuff in place that's happening in the next 2 weeks. I've announced on our Facebook page, new system. I'm going in to, do drop down menus to submit your cards, and then brand new printing systems, that's going to cost us upwards of $100,000 on printers. So a lot of new development going in all the time.
Yeah, it sounds like it. How much, how big, I don't want to say this, the percentage of the company that's focused on the innovation, because a lot of it is the hands-on managing the cards, but it sounds like you have a lot of people who are working on development, like the actual business
So we
development.
have, I'm going to guess probably 120 is about what we have on the actual production line. Now, if you want to go off that with management, my business development, my IT team, we're probably another 20, 22 people, I think, right now. So, I mean, we've got a huge team behind us. And like I said, the sky's the limit right now. So we're continuing to build out just as fast as we can.
Yeah. So, I mean, especially it's going so smoothly, but is there anything that now in retrospect you wish you would have known like last year as you were developing this?
Yeah. I wish I wouldn't have done it.
Oh, really?
I've lost probably 10 years off my life.
Oh, geez.
No, I love it when I sit there and think about it, but it's a lot of putting myself out there. I'm a pretty, I can't say reserved. I'm outgoing, but I don't like being in the limelight. And this has put me out in the limelight a lot more than I'm comfortable with and that I like. I don't like to be doing interviews. I'm not this type of person that likes videos and stuff. I'm like, oh no, not another one. It's like, here we go. It's just not who I am. That's not my personality. So it put me in a position that I don't like to be personally in. But then business wise, I take a lot more criticism, and people are always calling me out like, oh, he's just being greedy. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, if y'all only knew how much money I've dumped into this and how much time, I've put off with my family, and like they're going on vacation next week to Florida. I don't get to go because I'm still here trying to run a business. So, I've sacrificed a lot to try to build this business up. And that's what you do as an entrepreneur. So, I mean, it's not pity me. It's the realization of what it takes to open a successful business. 100-hour weeks are just standard for me. I haven't put in less than 100 hours a week in 7-8 months. I mean, it's 7 days a week. I'm not I can't remember the last time I took a day off.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's a lot of hustle, but I imagine you get the return though. That internal, like obviously you want to spend time with the family and things, but at the moment it's still feeding you.
There'll be a time when I get a return and I'm like, all right, we're there. But I have such big expectations, such huge expectations for myself and for the company. I'm not there yet. Mm-hmm. So there'll come a day when I'm like, oh man, this is awesome what we've done, and everybody, so many people around us are like, they come and they see it and they're like, wow, this place is huge compared to what, they thought it was. And so we're excited about doing some videos and, some different show arounds, because people don't realize how big we are. We're in a former Walmart. I mean, literally we're taking up a Walmart. But it's laid out. We spent hundreds of thousands renovating, updating it to make it flow for us. But people don't realize how big of a process, how in depth it is. And so it's going to be cool to launch some of the videos like that and just show people how much work has gone into this company.
Yeah. And do you then have any vision for your AI in terms of licensing that out? Because I know other companies now, they're trying to catch you in terms of the artificial intelligence. Have you considered like essentially white labeling it or doing anything like that, or keeping it? What's that?
Not a chance.
Yeah.
I build it, I keep it.
Definitely.
I'm selfish with my stuff, but we have discussed using our AI for some other aspects, such as in the medical field. We've been approached and talked to about some other people because of how in depth our parameters can be for measurements and stuff. So inside the medical field, there has been some talks that we could be crossing it over to use in some other helpful places. So which we would love to help any way we can in the medical field.
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. I mean, especially taking the technology because it's an amazing hobby, investment, all these things, but then applying it to something that can help possibly save lives. Like, how did that come about? Is that something that you guys recognize? Someone came to you?
Just some of our developers have worked aside, for inside the medical field with this different software development, and they're like, oh, this would be great for this and this and this, and we're like, yeah, I guess so. And they're like, would you ever think about doing that? I'm like, absolutely. Like, if it's helping somebody, yeah, it's 100% yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So yeah, there's definitely, we're looking at ways to, utilize the software the AI that we've built to, be used in other purposes as well.
Yeah. So at the very, very beginning, so you were of HGA, you were doing the launch of, you said 800 a week, but how did you hit the scene so quickly? Because I swear overnight, practically everyone was talking about you.
That's a funny story. I mean, it really is just from where I was breaking so much. I had a big following of people, who would like follow me around at breaks and just like, I just love watching you break. And, you spend so much money. I'm like, you're making me feel bad. But so I had a lot of people, who I knew in the industry. And I kept a couple people, a few people informed, like, hey, we're building our own system. And I would send them updates of where we were and everything. And so I wanted to keep it down low because, like I said, I was shooting for a July, open date, and then August, then September, then October, and it kept getting pushed off. So I never wanted to make any major announcements till we were ready. Well, I woke up one morning and they're like, hey, I think everything's good to go. I'm like, really? And so we went through everything. We just walked through it. They walk us through each part. I'm like, all right, so what are we missing now? And they're like, cards to grade. I'm like, really? We're ready to go. So we went ahead and I was like, all right. So I just put up a post on Facebook and everybody started sharing it around. And we filled up our first week in 3.5 days. I was like, all right, cool. It's faster than what we thought. I didn't think we'd fill up, because it's a hard industry to catch on. Everybody's so diehard PSA or diehard BGS. And then you got your outliers who like SGC. And the second week we filled up in 1 hour and 12 minutes. The third week our servers crashed and we filled up in 2 minutes. So after that, we just were like, okay, we got to figure something out because we saw a couple, like 1,800 people log in and we only had at that time we had no limits on how many cards you could submit, and it was a free for all. And we filled, like I said, it was like 1 minute 48 seconds. So then we were like, oh, we need to put in some type of queue or something. So now at any given time we're up to 10,000 people sitting in line, trying to submit cards.
Yeah. I thought that was a great upgrade because it's just like essentially standing in line at the store. You're just waiting your turn, and like obviously you don't like when it pops up and it's like your number 9,723.
Right.
But at the same time, at least it feels more fair instead of just like, is my internet fast enough? It's not like I'm not the bottleneck.
We had a lot of that. Yeah, we had a lot of people say, well, my internet's slow. I got in, but I didn't have time. And I'm like, so, we took everybody, and that's a big thing about me is I listen. People are sitting there saying, hey, this doesn't work. I don't like this. I don't like that. Well, the cool thing is I'm 100% owner. If I agree with you, I can change it. And we try to. We made so many changes and upgrades to our system and our website. I mean, it was to the point to where I was letting anybody submit as many cards they want. And then we went from that to 20. And then we went from 20 to 10, and then from 10 to 5. We kept learning how many cards people could send in just so more people would get an opportunity to send with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So relationships then. Big part of when you started this. What would you say, what kind of role has relationships played just across your entire career of doing this? And maybe how have you built up, maybe advice for someone who might be newer, how they could build up these relationships that are so valuable?
The better you treat people, the better your life will be. You always leave everybody with a good lasting impression of you. And that's, you never know when somebody's going to come in handy or be able to help you. And the more people you have at your disposal that you've treated kindly, they'll be way more willing to help you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, that is, it's so important because it's like, this is all people stuff. I mean, that's what I like to talk to. I like to always ask about relationship building when I talk to different entrepreneurs because it's so important. It's what you know and who you know. And the perfect synergy between those two is when you have a great endeavor.
Right.
Yeah. So with all the changes, all this stuff happening, what are you most excited for, like right now, today?
Honestly, our new printing system.
Yeah.
Our printing system is going to help out so much because right now, we have these specialized machines that scan and cut our labels, and it's a little inconsistent. And so people are like, oh, I can see white on the back of it. And I'm like, we get so many messages a day, and I'm like, it's just, it's overwhelming, just the amount of people that are very particular about their labels, and I get it. And we're doing everything we can, but there's not very many. We're having stuff custom built. I mean, we're talking in the neighborhood of it's 6 figures to get these printers that are custom built.
Wow.
And we didn't realize how hard that would have been. I just want to print one label. Well, It's not as easy. That's why you'll probably never ever see PSA or BGS doing what we're doing, just because it's too hard. It's just way too much work. I mean, our label printers, can only do 60 to 80 labels a day sometimes because they're custom. Wherever at PSA, they're probably pumping out 800 to 1,000 because all they do is just type it in, fill it in, it's done. Wherever they're creating and customizing each label.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. Do you have, because you do some fully custom labels and then you have some great canned designs. How does that work? Is there, there have to be people just dedicated just to those.
Yeah, so we have 15 label designers. And 3 of them are specific for customs. So when a custom order comes through, it goes right to one of the 3 that are our custom specialists.
Nice. Yeah. And how did the customs actually work? Just for I never really tried to figure that out.
So they just match it a lot better to the card. So let's say, for like, trying to think of a good one, like the green scopes, Joe Burrow or something. Mm-hmm. Instead of it just being like green and orange or whatever to match the card, they'll actually add circles and scopes and stuff and more of a holographic look to try to match up on it better. There's one with Kobe Bryant that they actually used a basketball hardwood floor on the background.
Nice.
So, to try to match the cards. It's just, they're going to try to go over the top and make it just blend with the card even better.
Mm-hmm. And from the consumer standpoint, is that one of the options? Do they have to sort of put a special request in?
It as of about 3 weeks ago, it's now an drop down option. So You have the color splash, you have the neutral labels, and then you've got the custom labels.
Yeah. I remember I saw there was a little back and forth about a cereal box one that you guys did, and I loved what you did on that label. Yeah, there was it is like a bit of an eye roller in terms of the conversation around it, but the label it was beautiful, and it was beautifully integrated in a way where obviously some people thought it was taken from that, which it wasn't.
Copied it, and so I called my lead designer. I'm like, "Did you copy?" He goes, "It doesn't even look the same." And when I scrolled in, I'm like, "It's not the same at all." I was like, "Oh, that's funny," but people just automatically assume, people just don't like us, don't like new competition. And, some people just don't like us for whatever reason, and that's fine. But then they try to, start, being slanderous and like, oh, they stole this, they're copying, it's trademark infringement. And then I looked at it and he showed me exactly how he created it. It was made from 7 different layers that he created and put together. And he's like, no, he's like, it's nothing like that. The actual splash of milk on ours was made from a wave, and then it was cropped out, it was whited out, and then it was turned into white. So it's just goofy that people just go that far to try to tear another company down. I'm like, it's just goofy. So
yeah, and it's hard, I think, for people on the outside, just of any sort of entrepreneurial endeavor, to know really how much goes into this. Like just how you're saying with the printing the labels, it does. We all have a printer, It's like, oh, it's easy, just print it the right size, you're good to go. But yeah, that there's so many intricate components of this one product that it's so hard to grasp.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I love what you've been doing with all of it. And I just wanted to also ask, idea to launch. This one sounds a little longer, like a longer period of time. There's around like 8 to almost 12 months.
Yeah.
In terms of your businesses, typically, do you find that it always goes longer? Do you find you can sort of like spin them up quicker depending on what they are?
This was definitely the longest startup we've had. Mm-hmm. I'm not a patient person, and everybody around me knows that. That's the entrepreneur in me. And I'm like, let's get this done. Let's get it done today. And I'm like, we'll put as many men as it takes on this project and we'll get this done. And that's just who I am. And we've worked, overnights. We've worked late, 14, 16, 18 hours every day. And so this one was definitely out of my wheelhouse. I was every day. I'm like, oh man, y'all are killing me. Like, let's work more. Let's work faster. And they're like, we already worked 80 hours last week. I'm like, okay, I remember my first job. So let's get to work. So, But no, this one definitely was a lot longer startup than the others.
Yeah. So in a bizarre world where everything you know right now, but you're actually like starting over. You don't have any of the businesses. You don't have maybe the funds yet, even. Maybe like a nominal amount that you could invest. What would be some of the first steps you might take today in 2021 to start building this empire of sorts that you've built?
Find something you're passionate about. Find something. To me, it's not always about, I think a lot of people want to try to reinvent a wheel. It's sometimes finding what you're passionate about, how you can do something better, and then just figuring out a path to creating a better product or a better environment in something you enjoy.
Yeah. It's that competition. Competing in something you already love, so you'll have a passion for what you're doing, but then, just getting out there and seeing what you can do, how you can ruffle some feathers, if you will, in that industry and really, carve out your path, which, I think you've done a great job in everything. I love it. And I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So where should we send people to check out Hybrid and everything you're up to?
You can send them to our Facebook, Hybrid Grading Approach, or you can send them to our website at www.hybridgrading.com.
Perfect. I want to thank Tyler for joining me on this episode. Be sure to check out Hybrid Grading Approach to see his business and everything that they're doing for the sports card industry in terms of grading. It's a phenomenal product that I highly recommend. And if you're curious to learn more about the sports card industry as a whole and how sports card investing has become a very valid approach to investing, check out my episode with Jeff Wilson, the sports card investor. We dive into everything and learn about everything about sports cards, about the industry as a whole right now, and learn about one of his biggest successes at the time, which was I think $17,000 Michael Jordan rookie card that turned into what would now be hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. And it's about 18 months or so. It's definitely worth checking out if you're interested in the topic, and that would be the Jeff Wilson episode about, 6 to 8 months ago, earlier in the feed. As always, this episode of Starting Now is brought to you by Built. At Built, we help you get started online. Whether you want to start a blog or a business, head on over to built.co. That's BYLT.co to get started. Built, your website, built for you, simply. Finally, if you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and to check out the YouTube version, my favorite version of the show. And I would love it if you reached out, leave a comment anywhere, message me on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you if you've been enjoying the show. So that'll do it. Again, I'm Jeff Sarris. This has been Starting Now, and I'll See you next time.